meeting to order at 5 o'clock. The updated agenda. Both had a chance to review the minutes of the prior meeting.
Yes.
Go with the regular meeting first. Anybody have any comments or revisions for Kerry?
I submitted them. There was one ZBA that was spelled ZBA, and that's all I have.
That was on the executive.
Executive, yeah.
Right. So I'll start with the one first.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of February 18th.
I will second.
All in favor? Aye. Same question on the executive session minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes, the executive meeting minutes of February 18th.
Seconded.
This is the one with the changes that didn't mention. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This. Okay, the warrants and abatements have been signed. Mr. Hoyt, you're up.
All right. Lots of them.
Thank you, James. Must be numbers.
Yeah, those ones
Original dollar.
are inside out, so you can't see the answer.
Looks better upside down.
It's nothing new. It's just put in the context we discussed
Yep.
last year. All right. So if you can put the inside out ones aside for a second. We'll start with Manly.
Yep.
So in terms of construction, things are moving ahead. We're kind of through the below ground, the foundation, and the structure piece of it. And so we're now kind of pivoting towards the interior work. As Wayne is aware, there was one issue with the erection of the building, but the RPR and the construction manager saw it happening in real time, went to BizCo, who put up absolutely no resistance, reordered the panels that were installed incorrectly. So those will be replaced at no cost to the water department. And again, the contractor agreed wholeheartedly that the installers screwed it up. So they're making that right. But other than that issue, things are kind of moving ahead. It's a little hot and cold depending on what subs are on site in a given day. But as we wait for the vessels, we think it's going to continue to be kind of here and there as the electricians come and go. In terms of the big milestones, everything still seems to be holding where we're hoping once we get through the chemical feed shop drawings, that right on the heels of that we'll be able to come in and start doing the changeover for the existing building. So that'd be the new media and the conversion over to the hypo. And then the vessels are still several months out from being ready to put in the new building. So in terms of the overall schedule, no changes from the last time we talked.
So the media is still scheduled to get there when we were talking about the last time.
Yep. I don't have a firm delivery date on the PFAS media, but it's anticipated to be available around the time the vessels are ready to accept them. But we'll have a firm date, I would anticipate, at the next monthly meeting we have for the project. So on the subject of Manly, you have first just the PFAS trends. So, as you're aware, we've had some unexpected performance issues with that short-term media. And if you look at the trend, it's pretty flat. So I know we did the backwash in January, hoping that was going to improve performance, and it really didn't. But at the same time, the numbers are still, all very close. And if you kind of flip it over to the backside, it has kind of the chart where you can see the blue and red dots. So the blue dots represent kind of what the gradient through the media looked like before the backwash. So in other words, we're sampling, it's installed vertically. So as the water works its way through the vertical column, it has more time to contact with the media and remove PFAS as it moves through the cylinder. So one of the ways we try to estimate media life is looking at these sampling ports we put in at various points. So we have one at the 25% tap, so that means it's only gone through 25% of the media. Then the 50% tap, 75%, and 100 is just what is coming out. So essentially what you'll see is that as you're moving through the media, your PFAS levels go up, right? Or I guess down, right? So it's highest where the media has had the least contact time. So what's interesting is you'll see at the 75% port and the 100% port, there's pretty much no change in the PFAS removal, at those final ports. But if you were to plot the curve through all 4 points, they are both linear, and their slopes are slightly different. So at this point, this isn't 100% definitive on what we're seeing, but what it does kind of suggest is that, we jostled up the media, but the overall capacity for it to treat PFAS hasn't changed. So in other words, we're still going in at, probably 30 to 40 parts in the raw and getting down to about 7 parts coming out. So we're still reducing, a significant amount of the PFAS, but most likely that media, no matter what we do, is never going to bounce back to being non-detect. And we're going to get into why that might be when I get into the SETCO report. But a couple things we noted is that neither in these charts or this table are we seeing an exponential trend. So typically, as you move towards breakout, you see an exponential increase in PFAS. So in other words, the media, its ability at 100% capacity is, not 100 times more than at 0%. So when you see a breakthrough chart, you'll see it's, 1 month it's at 1, then it's at 2, then it's at 4, then it's at 8, 12, and then you're, getting nothing. We're not seeing that. So that's, kind of our one little positive piece here is it's not showing an exponential trend in either place, which would make us think that, we're on the verge of, getting up to the MCL, right? So we're still talking, I know we're expecting non-detect at this point, but we're still talking, relatively low concentrations of PFAS in the effluent under the MCL. So we're not, in jeopardy of violating permit. And it does seem somewhat stable. So all that to say is we don't think it's an emergency to go pull the media out and replace it. in terms of meeting your permit and being in compliance and producing high quality water for your customers. So when we talk about our concern, it's strictly in terms of projecting out the full scale project and whether the solution we have in place is going to be the most cost effective, right? So that's just to kind of reset the, benchmark as we kind of go through the report. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're concerned with. If you, on day one, you're going to turn on this plant after the upgrades, you're going to have non-detect PFAS. But what we're hoping is when you do start to see breakthrough and when you do start to approach levels where you're considering replacement, you're far more than 44,000 bed volumes. So that's the context we're putting this all in is, we'd expect that to be 100, 150, 200,000 bed volumes before you need to replace media. And so even though we're not replacing it now, that number is why we're doing all this analysis. So I'm going to give you the cliff notes. I do think this is actually, and maybe this is just me being a nerd, but I actually think this is a very interesting report. And I do recommend reading it and seeing all of the analysis that was done, because even though it was a lot of follow up and asking them, and it took a while to get the report, there was a lot of work that clearly went into it. So I will say this was authored before we did the backwash.
I
So
was going to ask you.
yeah, so the results of the backwash aren't in here. We did call Adage Friday to kind of get their 2 cents, and they don't, obviously everyone's disappointed that the backwash didn't remove the fouling, but it does kind of back up the assertions that are made in this report. So Setco is the company we sent it out to. So it's third-party testing, and what we sent them was a core sample as well as a sample of the gel layer, they're calling it. It was that sludge you could see on the top. And essentially the long story short is the composition of that gel layer is very similar to the contents throughout the core sample. So it wasn't just present on the top, which is likely why the backwash alone didn't restore the media to full performance. Essentially what that means is that contamination worked its way through. The chemistry also kind of backs up that it is iron, manganese, and potassium that they found on the media, which kind of supports the theory that it was carryover from the old Green Sand Plus media, and the realization we came to later of having to shorten the run times, increase the rinse times, and kind of worked with Wayne to optimize that backwash schedule. That likely that combined with the chemical switchover, combined with the new media, should be addressing the issue. But this also does, their conclusion is that those media, I remember last time I was here I gave a corny analogy to the apartment building. So they're essentially saying that these materials are coating the outside so that PFAS can't get into the activation sites. So it can't get into the apartment, so to speak.
Does it adsorb or absorb?
Add, yeah. And the interesting thing is that they were able to use a solvent, I believe in this case they used methanol, to remove the contamination from it. But when I asked if there was any way to do that and then test the media for its PFAS, they didn't seem to know if it was even feasible, let alone show any interest in doing that experiment for us. But I know that was kind of one of the things that someone on the board had asked: is there any way to recover this media? And it sounds like probably not. So I guess that kind of brings us to where do we go from here? And so in a perfect world, we go into this long term knowing that 100% this is the cause, this is the solution, this is what's going to work. but I think all the evidence kind of points to that the performance issue is a result of the fouling. And so by removing the cause of the fouling, you should remove the cause of the early performance drop. So, as I mentioned, the upgrades to the plant should do some of that. What we are recommending, and we have some support for adage, would be to add what they call a bag filter between the Green Sand Plus and the PFAS. And essentially what this would do, from our opinion, is give an insurance policy that if we did see performance with the Green Sand Plus, that we have another avenue, if nothing else, just to visibly see that it's getting caught up on these filters. And also, we're looking at from a point of view where we want to give the water department the ammo to push back if adage were to not be able to meet their performance guarantee with the long-term solution, and then try to start pointing the finger at the water quality. It's not us, like we're not liable for replacing the media at our expense, because clearly it's something that was happening at the plant. By having that filter in place, you know, it kind of allows us to push back and say, well, whoa, you know, we're confident that it's not here, and you know, then we're not going into this whole study again in the long term. So we've asked for some pricing from a vendor on the filters themselves. Then once we have that, we know the dimensions of the filter, we're going to put together a sketch, and then our recommendation would be to send that to BISCO for pricing and see where that comes in terms of the budget for the project. So we have over $100,000 in contingency for that project. And at this point, you know, we're not completely out of the woods with construction to promise you there are no change orders coming. But, you know, the big things that you think would, you know, blow up in your face, so to speak, you know, would be the excavation, the foundation, the building, and the fact that we're kind of beyond those hurdles gives us a little confidence that, you know, as we move forward to the interior work, the chances of being surprised by $100,000 change orders, you know, goes down every week we go into construction, right? And then the other piece of that is also the, you know, the ARPA funds that, with the plan to use those at the end to reduce the principal of the SRF fund. But that's also an additional insurance policy in case of a price increase, that you could essentially pay for that with your existing appropriation without going back to DEP. So we're kind of investigating that, and then we'll see. And then the other piece is, if we're able to put the bag filter where the existing UV is, we think there's a way we could cut the cost of that by reusing some of the motor operated valves for the temporary. So the way we'd have to stage the work essentially is get the new building online, and then take the short-term offline, reuse the motor operated valves and the programming to move them over to where this work would be. And then potentially at the same time, we could redo the piping to put that tank back in parallel, which would allow, it would expedite Wayne's ability to put that back in line as a Green Sand Filter Plus, Green Sand Plus filter vessel down the road, which is something I know you guys want to do long term when, you know, funding allows.
Is it UV filters? UV?
So the UV light has been down for more than a year. We took it apart because it had a seal leak in the front end. The guys didn't jump on it fast enough, so when I went to order parts from Trojan, we have 2 UV lights in town. Nobody's asking questions up there, so they're sending me the wrong parts. I'm sending them back. So we ended up getting a wrong part. It's a very long, expensive part. It was like $4,500. When it came, they didn't get on it right away to install it, so we had no idea I had the wrong part. So when we opened it up, then I called Trojan, and they accepted the part back. So we currently have a credit. The new part would have been in excess of $6,000. I canceled it so that we're not putting money into something we're about to rip out. The UV light was installed with the thought that it was gonna meet 4-log approval. It does not. DEP does not accept that unit. So really, it does something, but it doesn't do anything. With 4-log, we don't need it anyways. And I'm not sure DEP would have allowed us to have the river well back had it just been the UV light and no chlorination.
So that bag filter would essentially take up the space that UV filter, which isn't a really, it's just,
And no, it's
It's
out
a
of the
diameter
way
pipe
so we
that's a
can
few
get
feet.
by when
Yeah.
we have to do maintenance work.
Yeah, I mean, when we put in another facility, granted it's a little different in terms of flow, and there were 2 of them, but, you know, each one was about 2 feet diameter, 5 feet tall.
What would you be thinking of for maintenance as far as if this thing's in line and it's basically taking out the stuff that
Yeah,
plugs this
so
filter, so is this gonna be?
hopefully you're never touching it. Hopefully we're up, you know, when we're done starting up the plant, we've optimized the Green Sand Plus, and it's there.
The only thing I'm worried about is that maybe the pipes burped up that sludge, that it was hanging in the pipe and a different flow pattern forced it out and into the filters, because there seemed to be big blobs built up that shouldn't have, I wouldn't have thought they would have accumulated like that, but you know, I don't know, molecularly they might have just gathered together. Is there a way to put the bag filter online for the startup so it's in place and we just have hand butterflies until, and we can pull them out with spacers? It's just an idea. I just worry, I don't want to foul out new media because something else burps up.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, we could also,
I can't get in, like, if I could, I'd send a sewer auger in and I'd clean all the pipes, but you can't, because, and it's fitting bounds, so to pull them apart and get at the various spots it's too much work. We'd be down for more than a month just doing that.
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking the cost of this is gonna be significantly less than the contingency, so if we have to give up a little cost savings to give you that protection, I'm sure it's not a huge price difference. You know,
Now, you talked
to
about the
do it.
motorized, so it's only gonna be active when we're around a backwash, or will it be active all the time?
No, essentially, the bag filter would be there in use all the time.
And just
But we need to
cycle
be
off
able
when we
to-
backwash?
Right, when we backwash, we need to bypass around it, so we're
Yeah.
going backwards through your bag filter and sending that all into your green sand vessels.
Yeah, I don't know what the dimensions are for the motorized ones versus a regular butterfly.
Yeah, I mean,
Flange
we
to
can-
flange.
Yeah, but we can put in, you know, the appropriate size nipple so that when you pull it out, you might have to just put another one in.
Yeah,
Would you allow it for differential pressure?
I mean, we could, it's an added cost.
it's either that or have.
But
gauges there.
let me go back and look and see, because I know we would have the discharge pressure on our green sand. So if I have inlet pressure on my PFAS, we could just do that electronically. So we could, you know, in the programming, have it compare the two. And we could normalize it, because there's gonna be some head loss between, because they're not right next to each other. But, you know, we could normalize that and then do an offset so that, you know, if your pressure drop starts to go above what we would expect, just go through a clean
Well,
filter.
I mean, if you didn't, you have any other way to know if that filter was starting to clog up? You're gonna have, without measuring the head loss
Yeah,
across
without-
it, it's not
yeah,
like you're looking
without-
through a window,
Right,
so there needs to be something.
needs to be something. But let me see if we can do it with the instrumentation we already have. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, you do manual valves, but ideally, you'd be able to see it on your screen. And the other item I was thinking in terms of contingency is that technically, the contractor owns having Hungerford and Terry come out and inspect those vessels. So if we were to open up a Green Sand Plus filter, the existing ones, and find out that they're damaged, that would eat into the contingency too, then to have to say replace an under drain or do any other repair. And hopefully, you know, they're in working order. But that's the only other potential surprise, I guess you could see.
Anything else for him on Manley Street?
No?
John?
I'm excited to read this.
Wayne?
Yeah.
Okay, so Sear Norman, I can't recall the exact timing, but I believe since last time I was here and now, so I think this is breaking news, but we did get the certificate from MIPA for our EENF and the approved EIR rollover. So that is great news because essentially that means they're going to take all the work we've already done, reissue it as our final permit. And as you know, nobody commented on it the first time around, except for the one letter of support we got from TEP. So, you know, at this point, it's just a formality. They automatically put out an environmental notice that this has been approved for rollover EIR. The product that they posted last time is now considered the final. And then at 30 days that expires. So we're expecting that the first week of April, we would get our final certificate that said, nobody came out of the woodwork, we're good to go, here's your certificate. And we're gonna be ready the next day to submit everything to planning board, submit everything to Concom, submit everything to DEP, to work towards getting approval to advertise and go to bid essentially with the design. So internally, what we're doing to be ready for that is really just coordination of the subs. Our process design is already at 99%. It's really just getting the subs and then doing, you know, our conflict resolution. You make sure, you know, we don't have a valve where they put a heater or where they put a light, right? So you have to do all of that. We'll do QA/QC of their work product to make sure, you know, their subdivision work is to our standards. And then at that point, we would be, you know, ready to submit. So we will probably submit that to you all kind of in parallel to some of these agencies, just from a scheduling standpoint. Because at this point, you know, we kind of locked in the process, you know, at the last 60% submittal with you guys. So there are no surprises, nothing that you haven't seen before in terms of process that we would want you to sign off on before we kind of move ahead. But if for some reason you're uncomfortable with that, then, you know, we can get you guys plans and, you know, delay submitting to others for a week. But as we get a little closer, we can coordinate that.
Well, you're not gonna submit to the others until right after that.
I mean,
Approval comes in.
DEP won't look at it until we have our MIPA certificate. And, you know, I don't know whether the planning board would have been as strict on that or not, but since we have, you know, we have to wait for DEP to review and they're gonna take their time, there was really no reason to, you know, ask for permission when we could just, you know, do it at the same time.
You'd really just be talking the end of this, you'd have to get it to us by the end of this month to give us time to look at it anyway. Excuse me. We'd have time to look at it, to get comments back, to get changes made anyway, if you're planning on being out that quick, so.
Yeah.
Unless you had an updated set that you could send.
And I can send you guys
If
the
you
process.
could send us the updated stuff by our next meeting, so we can look at it at the meeting. And that way, if something does jump out at Wayne or anybody else, we can let you know before that final submittal gets done, instead of having to amend it afterwards.
Just so you know, the next meeting is the 17th.
Okay. But again, we won't have all of our subs done by then.
Well, no, but they're kind of filling in the stuff that you've got, that we were talking about anyway,
Yeah.
so that's not as big a deal.
Yeah.
Just in case.
All right, so I feel like I'm already breaking my rule of going fast, sorry. All right, so the next piece is just a follow-up. You know, we went through the costs, and you had asked to kind of look at the impact on the previous rate studies we've done. So if you start with the one with the blue headings, essentially this is an update of the capital improvement costs. And it's consistent with the past assumptions we've made. You know, where the engineering fees are appropriated and spent and paid in the years like that work is being conducted. In some cases, it is split over, between 2 fiscal years. And then assuming that our construction costs are through an SRF program or something similar, where it's, paid over 20 years at the current DEP interest rates, and essentially kind of tabulate all of that, and then this shows us in a given year, over the span, what years are worse and what's our average, etc. So again, we did the same thing we did last time, where we assume we're moving forward with the PFAS at Sierra Norman right away, whereas the bottom table is what does it look like if we hold off, a year or two. And you'll see that in terms of the overall impact, it's actually not a lot, but it does give you more time for the rates to catch up because it shifts your worst year, later because you're
1 year.
incurring, yeah. So in terms of the, the overall, it's only 20,000, it only drops your peak cost by 20,000, but it does push it out a year. So there, is a financial benefit in terms of allowing you to increase your rates with, over an extra year or two. And so that folds into the analysis on the second sheet, where kind of, if you want to jump to the bottom, this is kind of the so what, where you have the proposed rates, the existing rates, the difference. Underneath, you'll see the revenue needed. So we have our annual budget, that's the 2.4 and change. And then we looked at our capital costs 2 ways. Our worst year versus our 5-year average. And then the same thing, the revenue, worst year, 5-year average. And then if you look, it's obviously a deficit at your existing rates. And so then it's a matter of what does it take in the proposed rates to make up that gap. And so you'll see in order to hit that 5-year average where you're running a surplus in some years, a deficit in that 1 year, but hope, overall, through the span of doing these projects, you should be able to fund it all. Then this proposed rate structure is an example of something you could do. As we talked about last time, we're not necessarily saying that this proposed rate study is this rate structure is the exact one you should do. We talked about the benefit of potentially being more aggressive with our base rates and dialing back our reliance on surplus usage. So we haven't gone any further with that analysis. The other thing we had talked about is, where do you draw your line in the sand in terms of what's excess or not. This keeps the existing, whereas in previous versions, we were incentivizing less usage. I think as a group, we thought that was maybe a little unrealistic, so we have kind of dialed back that piece. But I do think there's still an opportunity to try to shift some of the revenue towards your base billing versus your surplus billing.
Does that, so going from your existing, our existing to your proposed, is that changing that split roughly based on the,
Yeah, so I think last time I presented the base, we were only getting like 30-ish%. And now we're getting 34% out of the base. So it's better, but
so it's just a little bit up?
Yeah, but it's still definitely reliant on not getting a large constriction of water use when people's water bills go up.
James, you hate to throw off your whole sheet.
That's okay.
We did raise the rates last year.
Is that not? in
I think
the
we're at
existing-
90 a quarter, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
For single?
for residential
Residential.
one unit. We went up a third.
Maybe I updated the wrong spreadsheet, because Carrie sent me all of that, I thought.
No, our rates went
Oh,
up in
did you do it again?
2023. But they went up in 2023, 2024.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
wanna,
they went up this past year, so you might not have had. I mean, that's,
That's good, because we're closer to that.
Okay.
Right.
yeah.
So,
We're $15 off.
So if you can update that and email it out, and we can distribute that to everybody.
Okay. And I'm trying to think, I think the last time I presented on this was in June, so was it after June?
no, I think March, it was right after.
So maybe I do have the right one, so I updated the wrong spreadsheet. I'll check.
February, so it would have been after February's,
Yeah.
March.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have happened in March.
Alright, if I don't have the right ones, I'll reach out to Barry.
And these don't include anything related to how much principal forgiveness there might be,
Correct.
or anything that we might get from the PFAS settlement stuff. This is just,
Correct.
this is assuming
It
we're
doesn't
paying
include-
for all of it, even though with the SRF, we might be getting
Yeah.
a favorable rate or something, but
Yeah.
this would be to pay everything.
Right. The existing
case.
projects that got like ARPA funds, that's accounted for, but it doesn't even have the 3.1 and the emerging contaminants, which they sent yet another round of changes.
I'm like, how many times do we have to rewrite that thing?
Or just, if, you know, just tell us all the things you want us to change the first time.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, there, you know, I would consider this to be worst case. You know, unless all of a sudden SRF funds go away and you have to go to market, then the interest rates would be low here. But, yeah, so I don't think it would change the proposed rates or the revenue needed, but it would definitely help show the current deficit. So
Well, and it just is basically, we are closer to where we need to be than it shows up here.
Right,
Is the better point, is
Right.
that we're getting into a decent.
Manly, when Manly comes in, it'll probably be a wash. We paid off some debt, we're paying off some more debt this year, so when that hits the books, it's just gonna take up the place of what we've paid off in debt.
right. Yeah, when I say we took ARPA into account, I don't know if that applies to the $300,000 that we have towards construction, so I have to check.
Well, why did you drop the amount for Beacon, for the rate, where everything else is going up? You actually dropped from where the proposed? Was there, I don't recall us discussing anything about that, treating that one differently than anything else.
No, it's the only one?
It's the only, well, except for bulk water, which you dropped that also.
Yeah, we don't really sell bulk anymore.
No.
Okay, I'll check those two. Is it something I said?
We should probably have another meeting to go.
Yeah, she said she'd have to
Yeah, she
leave
told
by
us.
5:45.
I see you updated, but I emailed it to you as well.
All right, thank you. Okay, yeah, so I'll email this out too, so you have it for your next board
Yeah.
meeting. With those changes. So that's all the goodies I brought, but obviously I'm happy to talk about anything else that you guys.
Were you able to get numbers on Manley Street, what our final numbers would be after all the ARPA funds and SRF and?
Yeah. I'll email that over to you.
Okay.
And right now, no issues with the construction over there, everything's been going. The reason, your president, project representative's happy with what Briscoe's doing?
Yeah, like I said, there was the one issue got resolved. Otherwise, you know, I mean, I think he wishes their schedule's a little bit more regular, so it was easier for him to schedule his own time, but that's a him problem, not a you problem.
And then we need to talk about that subcommittee, but we don't have to do that.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of, like I said, I'm traveling next week. But I would like to accomplish it at some point in March. Again, just that if we get, you know, we're not gonna get permission to advertise until April anyway, right? Because we have to get DEP to sign off on it. And we're submitting to them at the very beginning of April. So, you know, if we can get it sorted at some point in March, then it's just off our plates and not anything to worry about as we, you know, when we finally do get permission to advertise and go to bid.
All right, so Wayne and I can talk on that and get back to you with some dates after you get back.
Okay. Yeah, I think the only other question we had talked about previously was whether you wanted to bring somebody else in or not.
We haven't really
Whether it's
talked about that.
procurement or the equivalent. Yeah, it's up to you. But again, you know, we've done all the legwork, so it would be good to be kind of familiar with what we've put together, but don't feel like you actually have to take that blank form, start over and do it all. Because I think part of the reason why it took me 2 weeks longer than I expected to get that out was because, you know, when you go through 64
It was a lot.
contractors and they each have 3 references, and then you start to realize that, you know, you spread that out over 2 or 3 engineers, they might not score everybody the same. So then we had to kind of go back through and normalize everything, so, I guess.
Yeah, because when I hit download for that file and it just kept going and going, I said, this is,
It's a lot.
there's a lot of information in that.
Yeah. But I think we're in a good space. You know, there are a couple things we should go over as a group that aren't clear cut, and that we should decide as a group how to score it. But I think the only other thing, and I sent in my follow-up email, is just that, you know, when it comes to reviewing the packages themselves, we just have to be careful that it does have confidential financial information.
Yes,
So-
it's subcommittee only, it's not for general distribution.
Right, so we can't just be printing it and leaving it places or sharing the link with anyone who asks, that's all.
Okay. Anything else for James?
No? Thank you, James.
You got it, anytime. You're good.
Good, thank you. Geez, it actually be light up when you start driving home.
I know, what- nice.
It'll just be warmer.
Yeah, I'm ready for it to be spring.
And then it'll be mud.
I already got that.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's see, what's the wording for this?
Just my notes.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll entertain a motion to enter executive session to pursuant to MGL Chapter 38, Section 21, Subsection 3 regarding the appeal of the ZBA decision approving the proposed contract as yard at 0 Matfield Street.
So moved.
To return into open session.
To return to open session after, which will be quick. Any motion to come back to open session?
So moved. Second?
Long, Cruz, yes.
No.
Cabral, yes. Craig, yes. And we're back. All right, fiscal 2026 budget update. Wayne?
Great.
You should have made the numbers bigger.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was on the agenda.
How'd your meeting go with him?
With who?
Did you meet with him? Anyway,
No.
it was a good meeting.
I don't know if I have to go to a meeting though. I'm not sure.
No, they'll tell us. I talked to Jeff Sunday.
Yeah.
and kind of went over what we're doing and what's going on here.
So anything on the budget sheet that's in yellow is changed. So it's off on my salary by 1,000, that makes the number that he was talking about correct. On the next line down,
Okay, so the number that's changed is actually
what's on the contract?
the 5111, the department request.
Yes,
Okay.
and then 5112, I changed, so it's hard to remember that I have a part-time employee, so when you put in, as you're filling out the next sheet that you see some have 40 hours and there's one with 30. So I had a 40 in there instead of 30, which made the number appear bigger. Nobody was gonna get paid anymore, it's just, it skewed the number. So once I corrected that, you see a negative number there now.
You corrected it to 20 or 30?
What?
Well, we'll get to that, let me go through the thing
Okay.
first, I'm gonna bring that up after.
And then the bottom, next one down, the 5249, I'm adding in $12,000 to hire a leak detection firm to come in. We're missing 30 million gallons of water a year. So this will be our second year we've been above the 10%. So it could take them a year or two to get to us, but it's better to be proactive and start chasing it. The problem is finding a reputable firm. I had a reputable one, he showed up, he did the first day, and then he goes, oh, this is my partner, I'm selling the business to him, he's gonna take the rest of it. It didn't go well from there. So the Mass Water Works has had a discussion board on leak detections, so I can go back in there, and some of those names I've seen before, and so it'd be better to pick a more reputable one. I didn't see the one that we used mentioned at all.
I think the
Probably gone.
last time we met, we were talking about the water, our leakage seems to have gone up.
Yeah.
So we're gonna need to have it in there anyway.
Right.
Might as well have it.
Is it a allowable number? I mean, is that something that
It's, no, because we're above, we're at 16%, so we're about 8 million above where we need to be. I mean, there's always some leakage, but that's excessive, so.
Okay.
So it could be something like out in the swamp from, I mean, just where you wouldn't know it's out in the middle of nowhere.
Right, but we've walked out there and I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
walk
just
out
saying that
again
as a reference. Yeah.
before everything starts to grow, so we can see that the path is clear cut, so in the future we can see if anything happens out there.
But there are plenty of places, like what happened on Manley Street, if that goes off into the swamp to the side.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
that one, if they spray out horizontal, then they don't, if they're under the clay layer, they won't puncture through until it erupts. You have to saturate enough to make it bubble up. And on the Manley Street one, which was losing a lot of water, it was spraying out horizontal until it finally cut the rest of the bolts and popped the top of the valve.
Okay, on 5112, I was been informed that the actual advertisement for that position was 20 hours.
So it was,
Yes,
and they are correct.
And we have been using 30, and that in order to use 30, we need to, as a board, decide, yes, we want to go to 30, vote to recommend to the selectmen that they allow us to increase that to 30, otherwise we're apparently in violation of something with the way the hours are being spent. So look, I don't know, I don't come from the union world, I don't know how any of this stuff works.
I just know that everybody was complaining that the phones weren't getting answered, so it went to 30, it's been at 30 hours for a long time, like 5 years plus, because that way they could cover when carriers out.
As far as in your budget.
Right.
But when the contract was done, for the advertisement was done for her, it specifically said 20
Right.
in that. I don't have a problem with her being used. I'm not suggesting we drop it down.
Right.
But we need to discuss if we want it to be clean, then we should be telling the Board of Selectmen, we're requesting that the Board of Selectmen approve the increase from 20 hours to 30 hours for our use of the line item 5112. I mean, does anybody want to drop that back down?
I'm just saying, I mean, could that be problematic in the future where it was advertised as a 20-hour position and it somehow was elevated to 30 hours?
Well, if,
It might have attracted more applicants. That's what I'm saying for that.
well,
Because that's full-time. 30, is 30, I think 30 is full-time.
no,
No.
35.
I think it's 32.
All right.
yeah, 32 hours is,
Because it might have attracted more applicants.
no,
30
it's
hours.
to keep it part-time.
Yeah,
19 and a half is the cutoff, and then anything over that is prorated for like insurance and whatnot.
20, I think.
Yeah, it becomes
Yeah, 19
benefited.
and a half is part-time, 20 is full-time.
but it might have included more applicants for the position.
I think she's doing a good job.
I'm not disputing that at all. All I'm saying is that, I mean, if it was advertised for 30 hours as opposed to 20 hours,
Right.
it might have opened up a bigger pool.
Right.
Well, from what I'm told, if we do that and voted to increase that position's time, then that should be covered on that issue, assuming the selectmen also go along with it and approve it.
But how did that happen, just from the 20 to the 30?
Because everybody kept complaining that they couldn't speak to anybody.
I mean, I always have the phone, it's
Right.
really just for office
Yeah.
coverage, and that went back to like
It was
before
Patricia, it goes way back.
Patricia, Alicia.
Yeah.
So it was it's actually a 30-hour position before, but so we should have advertised as a
I don't know if
30-hour
it was a
position.
30
But it's
hours.
not,
It
it's
would just
just-
cover if I was
It
gonna
was
be out.
covering when she was out, which I've got a budget for it, so that's how I budgeted for it.
Well, what's the other option?
Well, it was already budgeted for a 30-hour position.
What was that?
It was already budgeted for a 30-hour position.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
been budgeted for like 5 years. if I
Yeah, I think
go back.
probably it should have been the difference is the advertisement.
It was, but it's not, at that point, it wasn't a dedicated 30-hour position, it was, you know,
Just what you were budgeting for.
right, to cover.
So does this number now reflect a 30-hour position? or
Yes,
is-
it does.
So it's step raise plus COLA plus.
Well,
Well,
Well, it's not plus hours because you were already
Right.
budgeting it before, it's just before the last one had added up.
right.
For 10 more
Alicia
hours.
was here long enough to have a few step raises, so she made more.
Okay. All right, well, we deal with the budget, the overall budget first. Does anybody have any issues with what is on the budget as revised? And we still don't have all the numbers, I think, from,
He said
Well,
that, I saw an email, he said that he has them and he'll fill it in once you guys
You get
approve it. Technically, you're supposed to approve the budget complete, not, we just work backwards.
I'm fine with approving this budget as is, and then coming back to the issue of hours at a later time.
you'd like to make them, you'd like
Yeah.
to make a motion on that as far, when you say later time, you mean tonight?
I don't know, does it need to be on the agenda,
Well,
Well, the number would be the same. It was just a matter of,
approving?
yeah, we're approving the budget, then it's just a matter of do you get that changed through. It does not have, it's not, again, the way it was explained to me, and hopefully I'm saying it right, is it would go on, if we approve it tonight, it would go on
To the
their
selectmen.
agenda at the next, or the middle of March selectmen's meeting.
Does it
Both
fall under the
both
budget
to
though?
present the total budget, and if we, assuming we say yes to go make that a 30-hour position, that would be there for them to do that as well. Whether they, now they could come back,
Does
apparently.
does that fall under the budget though, or does that have to be a separate line item? Because I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Do you
Because
know?
other than that, I have to change this right now back down to 20 if you don't approve.
Yeah, no,
30.
we would send the selectmen this budget along with, we want to make that budget line item for 30 hours. So that,
It falls under the budget.
So, yeah,
That's what's on
but
the
that's-
agenda, right?
so it matches, yeah.
Okay,
that-
that was my question.
Yes, that,
Okay.
but that way, that will match the budget, and if they go with that, then that's done. Again, I'm going as to what was explained to me, I'm not an expert on it. So is there a consensus as to
Yeah.
doing the both?
Yes, do the both. Let's put it to bed.
I have no issues with the principal secretary working up to 30 hours.
Okay.
My issue was that I had to learn about the change in watching a meeting, and that it wasn't presented to us from 30 to 40. So I've given, I come in early, sign the warrant, never said no to anything, I just wish it had been presented to me. So I'll make a motion to accept the budget as presented.
John,
I'll second, yeah.
all in favor?
All right.
Right?
So are we making a separate motion to amend her
Well,
contract?
I would handle that separately, still under the budget item.
Okay.
But, yeah, now I would want to make a motion to amend the clerical line 5112, clerical salaries to position to be 30 hours
Number 20.
per week from 20 hours per week.
Does she want to work 30?
I think she does.
She's been mostly working between 25 and 30.
She pretty much
I've
has
seen the
been.
pay stubs, but do we want to say up to 30 hours so that she has
In between.
the flexibility?
Yeah. Sure, it's a good way to put it.
I don't know how you're like,
Because I don't want to change her job description on her in the middle
I
of.
can't say.
Yeah, now can we say up?
For up to 30 hours a week from 20 hours, is that the motion? To amend the clerical line 5112 position to be, to work up to 30 hours a week from 20 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't think there's any reason we can't say up to. That's all I'm trying to think of, I don't know. Well, if it is, they'll send it back
No,
to
that's
us.
right, we'll make the corrections.
Could you read back the motion?
Motion to amend clerical line 5112 position to work up to 30 hours a week from 20 hours a week.
And who made it?
So moved.
Dylan?
Oh, you made it, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, no, but you heard the wording back, just
Yeah.
to make sure. John, second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So that's done. What we'll have to do is send a letter over to the Board of Selectmen. I'll sign it if there are no objections,
None.
indicating what we did and why we did that. Okay, so that's... Anything else to discuss on the budget? Wayne, any surprises?
What, on the budget? No.
Yeah, we'll be good now, depending on whatever we...
Yeah.
All right.
I have other things, but nothing on the budget.
All right. Then we move on to old business.
Basically, we covered everything
I'll
down.
say, the first two bullets were covered under James.
This is
Right.
good. That's good. I had to refresh my memory. That's good.
Oh, okay. Communications Committee.
I haven't heard anything besides that Gary attended the second training for revise and
I
learned its
believe it went
strengths.
live. Yeah, I believe it went, it was going live either, the last training was Thursday, I don't know if it went live Friday or today. I actually didn't have time to go on it, but that's, on Thursday, I'll be going in and updating everything from the old to the new. So,
And hopefully it works as it updates.
yeah, that's why I waited till it was new till it was actually put into place before I uploaded everything.
The training was good enough, you feel confident in what?
Well,
you need to
I
do?
already do stuff in it, so like the first training was all a review of what we already did,
Yeah.
and the second was, yeah. And I was telling Dylan earlier that they recorded the trainings, so you can like go back and see like if you have any questions. I mean,
Okay.
there's a few, I think there were 13 of us on there, but there's 3 contacts, like if we have any questions that we don't get from the video, we can.
So if you do something and it doesn't do what you think it does, you have support?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you, Gary.
Hopefully that won't be a new business thing about why it's not working
I know.
for our next meeting.
Hopefully not.
All right, South Elm Street service leak, has he done anything, or is that still?
I mean, the thing is melted, it's gonna thaw a little. He's digging with a teaspoon machine. I don't think he understands what we need to do out at the street to connect him in. You know, that's not a safe trench to get in. I'll look at it and see if we just do our own dig safe, and when the time comes to help him along, we'll dig out by the street so that our main doesn't get struck, and he doesn't rip anything out of the main. The problem is that teaspoon machine is not gonna make it all the way up to the house in one day. It's just not powerful enough and it's not fast enough. I don't know what he's thinking. He should have started at the house and ran down, because then he could have called us, we could inspect, he could backfill, and then, and so on, and he could keep moving. And I have his friend's name and number, so I might give him a call and say, listen, why don't you do it this way?
That date's come and gone that we said if it's not repaired before this.
Oh, the bill went out, yeah, he has the bill. He has to come before you guys to do anything with that.
Okay.
What he's doing now is trying to speed up to make sure he doesn't get hit with the next one. And that, once again, that'll be up to you to decide to allow him not to.
I mean, is our pipe anywhere near that?
Oh, yes,
That property
it's
line,
there.
so it technically is kind of at risk if he's,
Yes, if he digs and doesn't know what he's doing with his little teaspoon machine.
Well, this part of our 30 million gallons being wasted.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it amounts, you saw the numbers.
It all
It
adds
does
up.
amount,
Yeah.
but it takes, and
I know.
not to say that there aren't more than a few of those around town. We had a spate of them go bad up on Milebrook. Is it Milebrook? Yeah, that has the two, we had several that just were leaking forever blow apart. We kept thinking we'd be up there for the rest of them.
kind of why it'd be nice to have a good leak detection company that can
Yeah.
actually
Can tell us
locate
what
what
they're
some of the
doing.
stuff is.
Our problem is that in the old days when they were doing things, if it was $5 for a shut off, they would skip it. They just wouldn't put them in. So gate valves and hydrants are spread out, except in industrial areas where they piled them up. I'm like, that doesn't-
You could make somebody else pay for it,
yeah.
basically.
So it's hard for soundings. Plus we have every material under the sun, luckily except lead. So sound, you can't get sound off of transite, which we have 17 miles of, and you can't get sound off of plastic. It doesn't travel.
Hopefully he fixes his, and if there's anything else popping around, it pops up instead of out,
Right.
and we find it, especially once the frost starts coming out of the ground, maybe
Yeah.
come up with a couple.
That one on East Center, that was, literally they ran it under a gas main. It was probably rubbing on the gas main.
Or electrolysis, because I just hate that 1-inch copper.
Yeah, that cut like the copper.
Yeah. Clean, almost a clean break.
It just, you could see the end. I thought that was the break, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. There was a little hole. That's why all of my road opening permits tell them to stay 6 feet away from us, except in crossing. You can't prevent crossings.
But even crossing, you don't have to have them touching.
Right, they shouldn't have been touching. And it was down deeper than we thought. And we also ran into, there was a giant stump that it looks like they tried to burn that was risky, because that stump reached and it was burnt down to where the gas main was.
Is that what that was? It was a burnt stump as opposed to
Yeah.
just the one that they left there?
Yep, no, they tried to burn it out.
Now, how did you find out about that? Somebody called on Sunday morning, or?
Yeah, well, it was a rollover accident. And, yeah, that's somebody called. Of course, it had been leaking and nobody called on Saturday when it was 50 degrees and we could have been out there in, t-shirts. Instead of Sunday when it was cold.
Chilly.
And about how long did it take?
It took like 5 hours. We have to go back and clean up, but everything was frozen, like all our materials are frozen. It's gonna settle once it starts to thaw out.
Is that water still off?
Yeah,
To
'cause
that building?
Well, it's mostly off, at least off the side of the road.
yeah, it's because they don't use the greenhouse part of it anymore.
Is that what it doesn't go to that office building that's been?
No, the office
Oh,
building
okay.
is further down.
Okay.
They did try, they rented it out, and the contractor stiffed them with the water bill. Because he didn't make any money, I guess, I don't know. So I don't think they're ever gonna turn that back on.
Got it. Okay, I thought I went to that office building. Okay. No, good job. Fortunately, it wasn't on the other side of the road where the main was.
Yeah, well, there was another line abandoned down there. We went across the road and disconnected it because it wasn't attached to anything when it did pop. So that's the second one on that property that's popped.
So there's only one live one now going in?
Well, that one's still live. We moved the shut-off back, so it's on the other side of the gas line now. So however many years from now, if it should decide to erode again, it's not us.
Okay.
But it's off at the curb stop, so.
Yeah, it's not feeding live into the property.
Right.
Past there. Okay. See, we got our Zoom drain repair bill.
Yes, it's
signed.
all
That's
set.
all set. Anything else you'd like to bring up tonight?
Yeah, so for about 3 or 4 months, we've had issues reading the meters. It's been off and on, so on my day off, I came in and I went through the meter. I hooked it all up to send them out to read, because I just wanted to know for myself that it was all done correctly, because there's a lot to it. You've got to manage the inputs and the outputs with the device manager and the computer. So as I was setting it up, I realized that it wasn't seeing the port. So that's when I began to investigate a little more, and I had to put on my long eyeballs to see in, and the USB port had been destroyed. There was only one on the tablet, so we're gonna have to replace it. The cost for that is $2,000. I told them to order it. We need it, we can't read without it. They'll give us a loaner if it doesn't come in time. We already have a loaner for another device. Because it was acting up, at that time, we thought it was another part, the antenna, the receiver part. So we had sent that out for repairs. So I've already told them that it probably does not need repairs, that it was probably that USB port going bad. It literally fell apart inside the tablet. This time we're getting a tough book instead of a tablet. But when we get it, we'll find some way to attach a USB splitter to the computer so it's not wiggling around.
Any idea when that?
I just sent, actually, I'm trying to think if I haven't sent it back to them. I've got too many irons in the fire. I'll send it back to them and get it ordered as quickly as we can.
Wait, on that 30 million gallons that are missing, is it possible that the remote readers could not be reading accurately what the head meters?
No,
Like say there's
usually
100
they're-
gallons here, and that might be only reading like 10. Is that possible?
In the times that we do like final reads, they come out exacting, or really, they use water from the time we read.
Right.
But they're always close. I haven't ever seen a discrepancy yet.
But if there's not a final read for 30 years, we
Yeah.
wouldn't know until. But then again, when you change the meters every 10 years because of the.
It's the meter that sends the signal out, so it's part of it. I had Carrie pull numbers in different iterations, because it's from year to year. So I had her do different iterations at different time spans to see if we gained anything or I was missing something, because I always worry about, we bill our next bill, we bill February, so it's January 15th, and then our last thing is November, so it's October 15th, or you have to go beyond until January 15th again. So I had her pull numbers in various spreads, and it didn't change the whole number that came out of the meter readings. I don't think there's any difference.
Okay.
If the thing becomes disconnected from the head, then it'll become different,
Right,
but then we
right.
get flagged. The only
Yeah,
thing
no
that-
water being used.
Right, well, you don't get, but it sees it sends out a tamper. It knows when it's been disconnected from the head.
And we usually read twice a month, the first and the 15th of each month, even when we're not billing.
Right.
And so those are the first two reports that I print out, like the meters that aren't reading, which are usually like, they're shut off because nobody's living there or whatever, like it's the same, probably 7 or 8 houses.
Right, all the time.
Or it'll say tamper, which is like far and few between. We get maybe 1 or 2 every couple months.
You can get a tamper, we send somebody out to
Yeah.
inspect the
Yes.
meter
Yeah.
and find out what's going on.
And sometimes it's just, oh, I saw it and I just cut it. I'm like, why would you do that? Some
But they'll go
people,
if they, they'll ring the bell if they're not there, they'll leave a blue tag, and they're usually
Right.
pretty good about calling, like a tag saying, call the water department, we noticed something with the meter. So they'll call and set up an appointment, and they'll go up there.
So if you disconnect the tailpiece from the meter, that will indicate tamper?
yes.
Let me try that. Just to drain, that's how you winterize a house, you break it at the meter.
Well, you have to just, no, so you can pull the meter out, that's not what triggers it. It's it's when you cut the wire to the transmitter.
okay, all right, I was thinking, like, if they take the meter, if they take the
No, we
tailpiece off
see
the
it no
meter.
use.
Okay, all right, I got you. Because I had a house a couple weeks ago, and the meter was, the house was winterized.
Yeah, there's a few houses in town
Alright.
that are like that.
Okay. Whew.
So other than the unexpected couple $1,000 expense, anything else?
So I'm hiring an instrument guy I found another firm. I just want to make sure that he wants to travel. He's out in Western Mass somewhere, so it's a 2-hour ride from here and back. I'm gonna install software so he can reach him remotely and I can see him remotely. We just have to put up a firewall, so that's another expense. It's under $1,000, I believe. To have them come in and work with Ed Sarro, our IT guy, to work with Hub Tech to get through the Fortnite. We already have a firewall in place, so they'll have to allow access for it to come in and out. They just port it and let it know. They give it a physical address. So when that's all done, to have him fix our SCADA screen, because we'll probably be looking at that SCADA screen for another 2 years, that'll be another $2,000.
But then he'll be able to run into it.
Yes, he can look in, if we have issues, he can look in remotely, and because we have the fiber networks, he can actually reach out to the PLCs and see into the stations themselves.
And with the firewall and enough security so somebody else can.
Right, I have to
come in and do it.
meet cybersecurity right
Yeah.
now, we're not internet, but when we leave here, we can't tell what's going on. Not that I wanna sit at home and go, did it change? Did it change? I don't wanna be doing that, but it's nice to look in on a hot summer day when you know usage is up, that you can make sure that everything's running correctly, and you don't come in the next day and find out that the tank's down by 10%.
12 feet.
Question?
No?
I don't have any more. I spent enough.
But you got a bunch done over the weekend too, so
Yeah.
I mean, that's so unfortunately, like you said, it didn't happen on the nice day, it doesn't happen
No.
during the week, it happens on a Sunday when
Right.
things go to hell.
Somehow I think it was colder this morning than it was Sunday morning. It just seemed colder.
Is there anything else? Okay, so we've got that. We'll put a letter together for that and shoot it over to me for the thing with the clerical. What do you want me to, okay.
If you want me to do it, I can do it.
Yeah, I do that, I mean, I can, because I'll forget to get it done, I want to get it over there to the selectmen. Oh yeah, we left the stipend.
Yeah, that's still in there.
That's not being changed.
Right.
And I think, yeah, there is nothing else to come up.
Next meeting is Monday, March 17th.
Yeah.
Make a motion
It was
to
still light
adjourn.
out.
Jack. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.